you to know is that everybody hits this at a different time in their life. And I had an advantage in that I hit it at a time when I needed it. And therefore, the question I'm going to ask you was not really a big question for me, because I think some of you may know I was a real estate developer, and as exciting and glamorous and lucrative as that can be, real estate development operates on a cycle. And unfortunately, I didn't see the cycle coming in '08. So in '08, our income went away. So when I looked at this in '11, I was motivated. But what I want to say to some of you maybe who are looking at this, and you're hearing us give you answers and solutions, and you see people like Taylor talking about an industry, you might be thinking, I don't even know that I have a problem. Why would I need a solution? So I want to give you a quick way to determine whether or not you really need to pay attention. If you're rocking along fine and doing well, you need to assess how you're getting your income. You got into this career, whatever you do, you entered the workforce maybe in your 20s, I don't know, some of us before, some of us a little after. And the plan was to work, what, forever till you die? No, the plan was, and I don't know exactly what yours was, but it was probably to work, you know, a while, save, do well, invest, and retire. And I don't know, some people thought they were going to work 40 years. Some people thought 35. I don't think many people in their 20s starting out plan to work 50 or more. But in fact, what you need to do today is assess wherever you are on that road from where you started to where you wanted to end up. I think you wanted to end up with the ability to pull back, relax, smell the roses, maybe keep working if you like what you're doing, but you did not want to have to look at your checkbook before you wrote a check. You did not want to look at your balance before you spent money. We all started into this workforce thinking that we would be able to pull back. And what I want to tell you is that the game rules have changed. There are no pensions for the most part. People are continuing to work. And if your income comes from your activity, then if your activity goes away, does your income go away? And so what we on the excitement about this is that we looked at the same ABC that Jill mentioned. And I remember thinking, if that's true, then I need the product. I was 65 years old, had, you know, certain ailments. But then the second thing I said was, how many people know about it and can you make money? Because I'm going to buy it. And if I'm going to buy it after 9 minutes of a video, other people are going to do that and someone's going to get rich. Now, I will tell you that as a real estate developer in 2011, I was still reeling from the recession. In fact, I was still in it. And this has saved us. What Becky and I did is simple. Our story is, once we verified that it was true, Becky's an RN, so she was able to do that quicker than I was. We started telling people. We bought a 30-day supply. They did. Everybody got a refill every month. And here we are 80-something months later, and we're still being paid for the refills that have come all those 80-something months. And so next week, or whenever the 15th is, we already know what our check is. The company gives you a back office, and you can go in to this month on the 2nd of the month. It's not usually that early. We were able to go in and see what our check is going to be on the 15th. And let me tell you, without giving you real numbers, back home the term would be, it's enough to choke a goat. Do any of you understand? I know you people in Georgia understand that, okay? So what we've got is an income that's not activity-based, but it's asset-based. And the asset in this situation is the product user. This company, its revenue comes about 80% from just product users, people who are not involved in the business, people who have no chance or interest in doing the business or getting a check. So that's my stability. And so we have that. So here we are, a little over 7 years later. we are not only in better health. You can't tell that maybe if you're just looking at me for the first time, but if you have known me for years, if you see me and you haven't seen me for a few years, your first comment is, I thought you were sick. You look healthy. What are you doing? And so we're not only in better health, but we have a retirement in place that is asset-based, that pays us like clockwork. And it's the kind of retirement that you need. Everything in our house is paid for with this deposit that comes in, the house, the cars, the vacations, the stuff we do for the grandchildren. And that's not the only part that we love. We have our time too. We're able to go, and when you have 9 grandchildren, you have a lot of stuff to do. You have recitals, you have t-ball games, you have softball, we have a lot to do that has nothing to do with creating an income. So we have our time and we have everything paid for. And my hope for you is that you'll listen to this, decide whether or not your security, if you have security, and many of you do, is your security based on your activity. If it is, then that's a red flag, because you're not going to feel like or want to kill yourself working when you're my age. Okay, so let me tell you that we want to pass along this information, but we want you to be receptive. You only are receptive to a solution if you acknowledge that there's a problem. And the problem is, for most of us, that the retirement that we thought would be in place may not be there. So let me tell you that if it's not, and you don't do something about it, if you don't change something, nothing will change. Now, they mentioned to you that I'm a family therapist, and that's the first thing we understand in family therapy is we're not always sure what to tell people to do, but we can be sure when we tell them, if you don't do something different, you're not going to get anything different. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of this as a plan B. And, we're talking about retirement. Now, that may not be important. I'm sure Taylor Warry is not thinking about retirement. He's 11 or 12. How old is he? But he's in his 20s. So I wouldn't be talking to him maybe about retirement, but I'll talk to you in general about it. If you set aside $1 million, and that's kind of the goal when we start off, when we're kids, is we want to have $1 million. Guys, the rules have changed. $1 million right now in a secure investment, a CD is the term they use for bank assets, is 30,000. You get 30,000 roughly a year on $1 million. And I know you well enough to know you can't live on that. So I want to challenge you in looking at our plan B. Ask yourself, is there any way in the next 12 months that you're going to be able to set aside $1 million so that you can get 30,000 a year off of it? And if there's a way, you could save it. Do the math. To save $1 million, you're going to have to save 83,000 a month. Isn't that right? 12 times 83 is, anyway, if you can save 83,000 a month, then you don't need to be talking about our business. The other way to do it is to work 10 years and save only 8,300 a month. You get my point. You have got to have assets. And what we've got here is a way to build assets. You'll hear us talk about the different levels of activity in our company. You'll hear people talk about Gabe and Jill being at a level 10. Well, there are levels of activity based on levels of volume of our company's products. And there is a mark in this company where you're making about $30,000 a year. It's very attainable. People do it all the time in a year. But even if it took you 2 or 3 years to amass a $30,000 a year extra income, you would have done the same thing. You would have accomplished the same thing as someone who is able to save $1 million. And yet your odds are you can't save $1 million in the next few years. We have some people in Georgia. I keep talking about Georgia. I don't know these people well, but all of a sudden they did not know it should take you a year or two to get to that 30,000 a year level. And they did it in months. And we'll talk some more about that. So what I want to think about is this a way for me to create an asset that will support me. Now, if you're younger, think of it as a travel fund. If you are at that point where your kids are going to be going to college, think of it as an education fund. But I want to tell you that once you decide you're going to do this, you need to know whether or not this is the right vehicle to use. And the LifeVantage is interesting to me. In old, it's new. It's old. The products have been 15 years. Humans, all mammals, without any adverse reactions. Now that's important to me because safety is important to everyone. So we are talking about an old company since '03, and yet the opportunity that we're in, the network marketing model, has been used only since 2000, late 2009 and 2010. So that's relatively new, which is good. People don't know about this. We've done surveys before, and if you go in to any area and ask people, less than 2% know about it, and less than 1% really have any information. So this is very stable. When you talk about stability, that's usually not very exciting. But what you need for an opportunity is stability, boring stability, but you need excitement. So let me talk a minute about those two areas. Here's the boring part. It's stable. The products are natural. They're effective. They're affordable. Blah, blah, blah. That's boring, but it's essential if you're going to be around, if you're going to count on this income for generations. I'll tell you, though, the generational part is interesting. I tell people, Gabe asked me to be sure and mention this again. We got into this, and about the third month, one of our kids called. He's a lawyer, okay? That happened. It was, he called me in his second or third year college, and he said, "Dad, I'm going to be an attorney." And I thought it was the beginning of a lawyer joke because he had grown up with us telling lawyer jokes. So the flip side of that is we have a lawyer in the family, and I think every family has something they deal with. We have a lawyer. So this lawyer calls us. He's a young lawyer, okay? He says, "Have you read the policies and procedures for this company?" And anybody who knows me knows I haven't read them yet. He said, "Well, this is an asset you have." I said, well, I knew that. I mean, it throws off money. That's sort of the definition of an asset. No, Dad. This is an asset that is inheritable. You see where he was going with it. He then said, "So how are we doing?" And I told the Brad, I said, "I'm taking this pill, so I'm not dying anytime soon." But it is exciting. Becky and I sat down this week doing a little estate planning. And if our check stayed where it is, which it will not, the trouble is it jumps. And when we found out what our check's going to be next week on the 15th, it's more than the one last month. So, but when we did that planning, our kids are going to have a residual income that we left. It's a legacy. And so that stable, boring stuff that I'm talking about, which is a company that's public, it's a company that's been around since '03, all of that boring stuff is what makes the income so exciting. This is not here today, gone tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about the exciting stuff, though. It's exciting that you look younger. I don't care who you are. You don't want to look older. And here I am 7 years later, and as bad as I look better than I did. Does that make sense? So here's the exciting part. When you're involved with us, you're going to look better and feel better. Now, we cannot make health claims. We can't say that it cures, treats, or mitigates. That doesn't mean that we don't believe that. Nowhere does it say we cannot believe that it cures, treats, and mitigates. You see the distinction. If we did not think that it was doing great things for us, we wouldn't be so passionate about never missing it. So The exciting part is that you create something. We get to travel now. And when we book a flight somewhere, we don't necessarily care what it costs. When we book a flight, we don't have to ask if we can be off work. We don't have to get someone to cover for us. And the exciting part is that we actually are free. Are we having any trouble with the audio or the visual? Can someone give me a thumbs up? I don't see you, Jill, and I'm not. Okay, are we doing okay? All right. How are we doing on time, Jill?
We're good. We're good.
All right. So what we have is Taylor was the expert on the industry, but I want to reiterate what I love about the industry. I was in the real estate industry, and you know that I mentioned it's a cycle. Well, that's great, except we don't eat on a cycle. We like to eat every year, every day. And so when we were looking for something to replace this real estate income, we wanted to look at it industry first and then a company. And the industry we found is health and wellness. Now, health and wellness is not only stable, it is trending. Now, trend is movement in one direction over time. Now, as you found out, a trend can be in either direction, okay? Health and wellness is in one direction, up. Never had a down year, and that's important. So whatever you create today will be there tomorrow. Now, also, it's the largest, not just large, it's the largest of the industries within our economy. I think the number was around 3 trillion was spent in health and wellness in this country alone last year. I can't fathom that, but it's bigger than other industries, and it's stable. Now, the 3 areas within it, and most of you know that treatment, research, and prevention are the 3 areas of healthcare. Treatment is obviously the biggest. That's where most of the money is spent. Research is there. We are actually, I think, more in prevention than in treatment. But you can make an argument for either. But the exciting part for me is that the fastest growing of the 3 segments of healthcare is prevention. What do people want? They want natural. They don't want prescriptions. They don't want side effects. So there is a trend toward natural. That's the second trend that this industry has. The other thing is the pension. That's gone away. But maybe when you entered the workforce, you thought that you would have a pension, a retirement. Well, that's changed, and the numbers are clear. Unless you're working for the government, you probably don't have a really good pension. And if you're working, you're going to get a pension, but it's going to be less money than you've got while you're working. And how many of us are going to live well retired if we have less money than we have while we're working? There's a myth that you need to know is a myth. The myth that when you retire, you need less money, that's stupid. Of course you need more money. You have more time, you have more dreams, you have a bucket list, and everything on your bucket list is expensive. This company sends us everywhere. We've been to Hawaii a couple of times. We've been, on cruises and all those things. But the good news is I told somebody the other day that we're going to go to Italy for 2.5 weeks in late September. And they said, "Oh, did you win a trip with the company?" And I said, "No, we're just going to Italy." That's exciting that we can do that. It's exciting that that's paid for. Yes, it's a company trip in the sense that everything we do is paid for by this company. And we appreciate that. So here's my excitement. And here's what I want to tell you about this opportunity. The things that are important to people are having the time to enjoy life, the health to enjoy life, and the funds to enjoy life. And then those of us who worry about the future, worry about, do I have enough disability insurance? Do I have enough life insurance? Guess what? our Life Vantage income is all of that. If something happens, if I'm mysteriously injured, on a putting green somewhere, a lot of putting green accidents I hear. But if something happens to me and I can't, talk to you on a Saturday, my income keeps going and maybe even is bigger. That's a disability policy in a sense. If something happens to me that I don't make it home, the proverbial truck hits me, whatever, Becky's income next month is stable. In fact, maybe even more. That gives me a lot of comfort. What we have is security in every area. Security now, security later, and the ability to leave a legacy for our kids. This is a great idea. Getting involved in something that people want and need, and that you'll be well paid for, not just the week or month that you work, but every week and month later that you don't work. I'm going to pass it back to you, Jill. And again, I'm sorry for the timing problem.
No. I'm thrilled that you're on the line today. Thank you for taking the time, even though you're with your family. But that's also the beauty of this business, that we can connect like this in different states, different countries around the globe. We have people from all over the globe on. We have Italy, Alex in Italy. We have folks from Germany. Give me a shout out if you're anywhere else around the globe. But that's what makes this so beautiful. And I'd like to recap before you get off the line, Fred. He is so, Fred, you are just so leveling for me and stable, and you ground me, and I love your voice. And I'm just so honored to work with you. A few key points I want to just re-emphasize that you went over, and maybe if you see I left a gap or you'd like to reiterate a little bit, that this is all stable. Everything about this business model is stable. And whether it's the model itself, whether it's the product, the way we get that product, anything about this opportunity, it's stable, it's secure. And then as you broke it down, you talked about leveraged income. And I love this because we're not taught this in traditional school, I don't think, about this leveraged income business. And what I teach my kids today is whatever you do, you don't have to do what I do, but figure out when you come out of the gates, do something that's building an asset or creates leverage or a leveraged income. So I'm constantly trying to plant those seeds because they'll be working anyway. Isn't that correct, Fred?
Yeah, absolutely. The security part comes from, and the leverage too. Sometimes when I hear people use the word leverage, in the early days, I didn't fully understand that because I don't have a business school background. It means that my income is coming from the activities of other people. And it's not just other distributors. It is those 80% that I told you are customers. So when a customer gets their refill, in effect, they create an income for me because I get a commission. That's leverage, but it's not the picture you may have of me having a bunch of workers out there. This is so sweet in that the asset is the product user, and most of them are simply customers who want to look and feel better. And so leverage is a great word. Sometimes it's a little cold. The fact is we have created Becky and I have created an asset. This is interesting, exciting. When we joined this company, the year before, the whole company had done a little over $3 million in annual revenue. Okay. Mm-hmm. The year that we joined, they ended with 11.8 million in overall revenue. Okay. this year, Becky and I, in our little business, will have the equivalent of 4 to 5 million in revenue. So imagine that
That's
200
cool.
people in Jackson, Mississippi actually have a bigger business than LifeVantage, the whole world had in 2011. If that's not exciting, and I will tell you that the best time, the easiest time to create that kind of growth is now. Well, I'm glad we joined when we did because we needed all that money they've given us in the meantime. But if you were picking a time to drop into this industry, to drop into this company, that now, those people in Georgia that I mentioned, they got in a few months ago out whitewater rafting at that Pro 5 Summit. You know, and one of them just joined in March. Guys, this is August the 3rd or 4th. Now, they have created in much less time, Jill, the volume that Abe took a while to do. Becky and I took a while to do. And by all measure, your production was record pace. And by some measure, what we did was record pace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're making us look like Red and the way they're doing it. And I'm so excited. We made a wager. I said, if you guys make it, they were going for Pro 6 and Pro 7 after only a few months in the business. And I thought I was pretty safe in saying, look, you guys make that and I'll wear a Georgia cap at the convention in Salt Lake in October. Well, they got this look on their face. And I said, and if you don't, you're going to wear an Ole Miss cap. And I got this text from their upline. And the comment was, my people will not wear an Ole Miss cap. And darn if they won't. And guess what I'm going to be wearing in Utah? I'm going to be wearing a Georgia Bulldog cap. And since they both made it, 6 and 7, I got to wear the Georgia jersey. Well, let me tell you something. Those two people added $2.5 million a year to volume for me and Becky. So don't tell them, but if they do that again, I'll wear Bulldog underwear. It doesn't matter. We're excited. You know, go
That's
Georgia Bulldogs. Yeah.
Well, let me backtrack a little bit. So when Taylor Worry was on the line first thing, he was at the Pro 5 Summit. And Fred had mentioned different levels of this business. There's like 1 through 12. And so when you hit that level 5, the company flies you out to Salt Lake City to this Park City to overlook the mountainside, to take hold of our company, to build a vision, and to teach you to get to the next levels. So that's the event that Taylor Worry was at this morning when he jumped on our call. And that's where Gabe is too. And what Fred is referring to is a couple of our teammates qualified for this trip. And not only that, they hit these elite ranks just in these past few days. So just not Pro 5, they hit the elite ranks in record time. And they had put all these bets on, obviously there's a rivalry going on between Ole Miss and Georgia there. We won't talk about the Seminoles though, right? Yeah. So anyway, but that's a big picture. The company, I don't even want to, what is so exciting, and I think you would agree with me, Fred, they pay us handsomely for doing the activity, for building a business, for locking arms with other amazing people on the planet. And then they give us trips on top of it, which really blew me away in the beginning. What about you, Fred? You too?
Yeah, we didn't fully know what we'd gotten into, and we just called that we're all going to and this was like in the 3rd month we with the company. What you're watching this morning is people who are well paid. And I'm excited about what I know my check's going to be, Jill. So I cannot even imagine your excitement.
Yes.
Talk
We're
about
very
choking a
blessed.
goat. I
We're
mean,
very
you
blessed.
guys, and we're having, here's the message. This is not really work. We're having a ball. We're with people we enjoy, and it's not technical. I mean, you want, obviously. If you don't, here's something. I forget whether Herbert said this or not. Herbert, I hope you're still listening. Herbert's the most quotable mentor ever. And if you don't want better health, feel better and look better, it may be that your gene pool needs chlorine. I don't know if Herbert said that or not, but in other words, you got to be a little bit crazy not to want what we have. And then if you can get paid for telling other people that, and that's all we do. I mean, we don't sell them anything. We tell them how to get it, and we are honest and say, when you buy this, I will get a commission. And so we're having a ball. Do not tell Darren that I feel that I'm overpaid. I don't want Vincent to know that I'm overpaid. Now, I want him to just rock along, keep sending the checks. And when you see him, tell him the people in Mississippi appreciate him.
I will. And, a couple more points is, I'm going to bank off what you said about, we have an incredible team. And I think when you get to Fred's level and above, and I love when Gabe says this, don't think about the money necessarily Fred talked about always. I mean, it's a great benefit, but think about how many people, just like Taylor talked about in the beginning, that each and every one of us has helped, has mentored, has educated, has taught, has inspired. And that's what this business is about reaching down and pulling folks up and teaching them what it takes to become a professional in this industry. And I also loved when we talked earlier, Fred, you talked about the stars are all aligned right now, right? And in addition to that, these are a couple more points, and then you can chime in and we can wrap up this section. But again, we talked about first and foremost the viability of the business, that this business model, because it took me a while to go, oh, this is just a business model. And I had a traditional business for 10 years, and it looked a certain way. It looked and felt a certain way. And this is just a different business model. It's no different. And he talked about the stability. It's a $1 trillion industry. When he went and started talking about a $1 trillion industry, that was about trends. And he talked about the treatment, research, and prevention and healthcare, and that we are in this space, this $1 trillion space of prevention. Not only that, he talked about life in general, right? And these are points to be noted from his presentation, that never before in my life as a working adult has something created such time freedom, health, and the funds, the resources we need to be with our families, to send my daughter to college, or, and I think when you were talking, Fred, the most impactful thing that came to my head about time was when my mother passed away, and I was able to drive down during that whole time she was sick and be by her side. And that's priceless. And the last piece you brought up, and probably the most profound, is the security piece of it. And that ties along again with that time freedom, that we're able to have that annuity every month, correct? And it's truly, it took a while for me to go, wow, this is truly a business model that the word needs to be spread. And what I understand, it's now this business model and what Taylor talked about, this is a $200 billion industry. With that, Fred, any last thoughts before we wrapped up, or any challenges for the folks who are watching?
Well, yeah, my challenge would um, be realistic. If you keep doing exactly what you're doing and setting aside the same amount of money every month that you set aside last month, are you going to have $7 million saved up to give you the kind of retirement that you want? And the answer, obviously, for most people is there's no way. In fact, most people did not save that much last month. And so that's your reality check. Now, if your reality check is what I think it is, then you've got to do something different. And Jill, if they don't do our different, my challenge is, if for some reason you don't like our challenge or our different, find something.
Yes.
Because if you do not have an asset income from rental homes or, cash in the bank, the other kinds of passive, if you don't have it, you will never be able to get off the hamster wheel. Because when you do, I don't care if you're a surgeon making $1 million, $2 million a year, when you're not in surgery, you're not in income. So that's my challenge, is be realistic. Do you have it the way you need it? And if you don't, you're the one responsible for making the change. We'll help you. And I think you've seen enough of what we do to know you can do it. I mean, anybody can do what I've done this morning. An interesting show you got here. You got a guy without his bathing suit walking around in the water, and then you got a guy sitting in the back seat of his car. And hey, this is a business meeting, and I'm pretty dressed up, for this business meeting. So yeah, you can do it. And if you don't do it, here's the challenge. If you don't do it, it's not going to get done. And you want to do it for now, you want to do it for later, and you want to leave a legacy. That's our spirituality, is that there's something about leaving a legacy. We want to leave the world better than when we found it. We love the phone calls. I don't want to edge here, but we get calls occasionally from someone who says, my mother, and they're crying, and we can feel the tears. My mother recognized me this morning.
Aww.
And you know what that means? She had not for a long time. Now, we can't say that NRF2 activation or NRF1 activation reverses Alzheimer's. But we can get off the phone and thank God that we found this and that we had the wisdom to share it with other people. And so, feel good about what we're doing, and we're paid. Thank you.